Hi everyone, it's Katie, and today I have another installment of Therapeutic Tarot for you. Today we're going to be talking about using your deck of cards, tarot in this instance, for self-care ideas and activities. The Therapeutic Tarot series on this channel is all about using tarot and oracle cards in general, for mental well-being and mental health maintenance. And if you haven't already, I would please ask you to watch the introductory video to this series, which I will leave in the cards, as well as a link in the description below. Basically, that just runs over my history and my perspective, my approach, why I'm making this series, and also a few disclaimers. The big one of which is the fact that I am not saying at all that this stuff replaces therapy or medication or any other kind of intervention that you might need. The things that I offer in this series are instead intended to be additional, complementary, supplementary to any other wellness maintenance practices that you need for yourself. So now we will get into it. This is a fun exercise that I have used for the longest time. I've been using this probably ever since I started using tarot, really. And that is basically having a self-care activity attached to each and every card of the tarot. What I like about this exercise is the fact that sometimes, we know we need to take care of ourselves, but it can be hard sometimes if we're feeling a little bit stressed or upset to just really think of what to do. It sounds really simple, but sometimes it can feel just, you kind of get stuck being like, I don't know what to do. What can I do? And even if you have a list of things, sometimes it can feel just overwhelming trying to decide between them. So if you're ever there, that's what I love this exercise for. I think it's also great if you're just aware that you haven't maybe been taking great care of yourself, to maybe just for a week commit to taking out a card every day and doing that thing sometime during that day. So basically the reason tarot is helpful is one, because it can, using the images can kind of get you thinking about different self-care activities to write down. But then also it's just a really easy tool to do that shuffling and pick one at random. It's kind of like having, a hat full of different ideas that you can pull one out of, except, unless you have a lot of space, you don't really want to keep a hat around with a bunch of self-care activities written on pieces of paper to draw from. Instead, you just have a list in your diary or your book, your journal, whatever, and you have your tarot cards, which you have anyway. So the first step in kind of getting going with this activity is to actually go through the entire deck, write out, the names of every card, and then to go through and come up with self-care activities to associate to each and every card. Now, I will leave a link to my blog post in which I will share with you my current self-care activities for each card. This kind of changes. I've recently kind of gone over and changed a few up because depending on what you need and where you're at, these will change. I'm fairly well at the moment. I'm very well at the moment, so I don't need any of those more serious self-care activities or harm minimization activities. Instead, these are much more kind of just keeping me well, keeping me happy. And this is the hardest part of this whole thing. Some cards will be very easy, something will click straight away of what self-care activity you can associate with this card. Others might be a little bit more tricky. So I have some tips for this. First, I would say that you don't have to associate the self-care activity specifically with the meaning of the card, the traditional meaning. You can, if something makes sense for you with that meaning, then go with that. Alternatively, of course, you can just use the imagery, and whatever idea first comes to your mind based on the imagery, that's a good one to go with. I started with the Rider-Waite-Smith and kind of went through the whole deck, and anything that kind of came up, even if it just took me a minute or so, I would write down for the cards. But there were some cards that still I wasn't 100% sure of. So I went to other decks for that. I started going through the Next World Tarot because that is very much a self-loving deck. Also went through the Sasarai Beto. I even went through the Gil Tarot and the Fantastic Menagerie, which are two of my favorites. And by the time I got through the end of all of those cards, those several decks, I managed to have a self-care activity for each and every of the 78 cards in the tarot. I would suggest not to overthink this. This isn't necessarily a learning tool, although I think it definitely does kind of get you in touch with the cards in a new way. It's not designed to be right. There is no right activity to associate with the card. It's basically just works for you. And have a bit of a think about the self-care activities that you go to, and really make sure you include those in the cards, but also try to include ones that you don't necessarily go to on an everyday basis or on a weekly basis. Try to include ones that are a little bit more outside of your box. If you have a few self-care activities in mind that you've been wanting to try, make sure you try and fit those in. And if at the end of going through a bunch of different decks you're still kind of stuck on a card or two, just put in whatever. Put in a couple of activities that you've been wanting to try, or that you know really work for you, or just things that you know you're curious about. Just put those in. It doesn't really matter what it is. I think it's fun to kind of associate them with the feeling the card gives you, or the imagery, or even the meaning, but it's not essential. The idea is that you will have this list with you when you go to do this activity, so it's not necessary for you to, you know, have such a strong connection between the activity and the card that you're able to memorize it. And what comes next is probably pretty obvious. Basically, you just shuffle up a deck. It doesn't have to be the deck that you used, although I would say, you know, make sure it's a deck with the 78 cards that correspond to the suits and everything that you have already put down in your list, so that, you know, you're not drawing some random card that, you know, doesn't apply to what's on your list already. Just shuffle up your deck and pick a card. So for example, the World for me is to dance. The Nine of Swords for me is to change the sheets, clean the sheets, and cleanse the bedroom, and to check in and make sure my sleeping pattern is alright. The Ace of Wands for me is to do a puzzle. Now this comes from the Therapeutic Tarot, which does have like a maze on the ace. So even though that doesn't show up in every deck, and it's not showing up in this deck that I'm using right now, that's what I've associated with this card for the self-care activity. So that is what I'm going to do. The Ten of Wands is to set some priorities, organize my priorities, and ask for help if I need to. The Eight of Pentacles is to draw or paint or create something. The Knight of Pentacles is to write a list of whatever's stressing me out and break down my goals step by step. The Two of Pentacles is to do some of my balance and stretching exercises that my physio has prescribed. The Queen of Swords is to write a letter to someone that I love. I think this comes from the Therapeutic Tarot as well. The Three of Pentacles is to practice my French. The Page of Swords is to go outside and watch the clouds or the birds. The Five of Pentacles is to colour in. I got this from, it just popped in my head from looking at the stained glass window in a lot of the decks. They just are so colourful and pretty, and they look like, you know, what you might find in a colouring in book. So that's what I got for the Five of Pentacles. The Six of Pentacles, a lot of pentacles are coming up, aren't they? This was to make a donation to a cause I care about. The High Priestess was to sit down and pray or meditate. The Devil is to do something just because it feels good. So that might be having some chocolate or masturbating, whatever it is, just something that I do just because it feels good. The Chariot was to go for a bike ride. Judgment is to make a call to a friend or a family member. And the Queen of Cups was to dress up fabulously. I think this came from the next world. So those are a few of the examples that I have created for myself. As I said, I will leave a blog post with all of mine listed. These are of course just personal to me, but I hope they give you some ideas. So I love this exercise because once you've kind of taken the time to write out your list, it's kind of there, and you can use this exercise anytime you want. One thing I would advise is to avoid assigning too many activities to one card. I would say most of the time just assign one activity to each card, because the whole point of this is to avoid that kind of overwhelm and confusion of having to choose an activity. The point is that the deck chooses for you. There are a couple of cards where I have maybe two activities, more because, you know, one of the activities maybe isn't relevant all the time, but I've only done that for a few cards. I've tried to avoid doing that for too many. So I would love to hear if you are planning on trying this, and also if you're comfortable, I would love if you could share a couple of the self-care activities you come up with and what card you've associated them with. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of Therapeutic Tarot, and if you have any comments or questions for me, as always, leave those below. And if you're new here and you enjoyed this video, do go ahead and subscribe so you can find out when I next upload a Therapeutic Tarot video. I will also leave a link to the playlist of this entire series, all the videos that I've made so far for Therapeutic Tarot, in the description bar below. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I would love to hear what you think in the comments, and until next time, so much love. Bye.